Hello, my dear listeners from all around the world. Here is a little celebratory announcement. Thank You Mama won its third award. How exciting is that? The Communicator Awards honor excellence in strategic, effective, and meaningful communication. And yes, I really believe we're doing all of this. I can't tell you enough how honored and excited I feel about how much this podcast is being showered with love. Thank you for being part of it. I also wanted to announce that the summer is coming. Surprise, surprise. And we have less time to work or listen to podcasts. For some lucky ones, this year it also means traveling. And for my family, it means a big move. So this is why I decided to switch the publishing of the episodes to bi-weekly. It makes me a little sad, but I'm also thinking of how often I heard from you that even under normal circumstances, you actually don't have enough time to listen every single week. But I prepared some amazing interviews for you for this summer with very, very inspiring ladies who are book authors, journalists, coaches, CEOs from countries such as New Zealand, India, Bosnia, United States, Switzerland, and many more. So please do not forget to tune in every second week. And if you haven't yet, please rate the podcast with 5 stars. You will find the stars at the bottom of all episodes. Just click on the star to the right to mark all 5 and submit. It's easy and it helps the podcast tremendously. Thank you so much for your support. And we had some trouble with the sound in this week's episode. But I would like to urge you to please not give up listening because we did repair it at one point. Dora shares really inspiring stories and lessons from her South Sudanese mom, and it would really be a shame to miss it because of the sound quality. We were thinking of re-recording it, but from my experience, I know that you just lose the original mojo and the spontaneity if you re-record the interview, so bear with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My guest today is Dora Poni Loro. Dora is a social worker. She's originally from South Sudan. She's been living in Norway for quite a while now. And Dora studied trauma-informed care, disclosure of sexual abuse in children. She has a master's degree in childcare. And right now she works for NGOs supporting youth and women's empowerment, migration, cross-cultural challenges, and active representation of minorities. Dora is also a mom of 2. Dora, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being my guest. Did I miss anything in my introduction of you? It's quite, your work field is very complex.
Yeah. Oh, I would say I currently work in the child welfare services for unaccompanied refugee minors. And and I'm involved in a lot of NGOs where I kind of use privilege of the voice that I have and the ideas that I have to just bring it to pass and work with things that I'm passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And listening to your other interviews, I heard that you work a lot with domestic abuse, do you? Domestic violence?
I did that early on, working with women in an organization. I've met women who have domestic violence and other form of violence. Mm-hmm. So before working in the child welfare services, it's like 10 years ago, I worked 10 years in the NGO where I worked especially with minority women and young girls. Mm-hmm. So that's where I also encountered these problems. And now in my extra kind of engagement in the free, like I would say, the NGOs that I involve myself in. So we get also these issues, different types of abuse on women and actually also young men.
Mm-hmm. Dora, how long have you been in Norway? It sounds like you've been there for quite a while now.
Yeah, it sounds like ages. I came to Norway in 99, so I've lived here in, 22 years. So it's like half of my adult life, whole of my
Yes.
life, actually, I've lived in Norway. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you come to Norway?
But I came as a student initially, but then I sought asylum because it was the same year where the situation in South Sudan escalated and refugees from South Sudan were being resettled in different countries. So instead of returning home, I sought asylum to stay in Norway. And that was one of the toughest decisions of my life to decide to stay in a country I never know anything about, leaving behind my family, my network, and all.
I know.
It was a tough decision. And 20 years on, 22 years on, I'm still here. So it's been a journey. Yeah, and you learn the language again,
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. Have you learned Norwegian? Sounds quite difficult. Have you learned it?
Oh, yeah, I had to, of course. Though I spoke English when I came to Norway, and that was also, at least I could navigate my way through the first few years because most Norwegians speak English. But then to be able to study further, to be able to work and be a part of the society, I had to learn the language. I had already started the university in my country. I studied 2 years of veterinary sciences. But coming here, I had to start learning the language first. I had to go 1 year to learn the language, the basics, and then 1 more year to take the higher level of the language to be able to apply for the university. So I spent quite some time first learning the language and then studying both. My first degree was actually in natural sciences, molecular biology, and that's the University of Bergen. And then I had to do, after I finished my first bachelor's, I found out it wasn't what I wanted to work with. My passion was working with people, and that's why I chose to study social work. And then I registered to the social work college and had to do 3 years of college and in Norwegian, and those were the toughest years.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the university level. But all in all, it has been a journey that I've really learned a lot from. Yeah, that's the language I use both at work and, academically, and yeah.
And I guess your children are fluent in Norwegian. It's funny, isn't it, when your child speaks another language more fluently, like when it's there. My son corrects me very often in my English. He's a native speaker.
I hear that. And I tell them, that's okay. And they would like, Mama, what do you mean? What is that? I'm like, yeah. And with Norwegian, they have these, some alphabets that are kind of difficult to pronounce.
Yes, I know.
I'm like, so it's like, okay. You know what I mean.
I know. Kai's making fun of me and he says, Mama, say staff. So there's a difference between staff, like the stick, and staff, like things. I don't, like for me, the difference doesn't exist. And he gets such a kick out of it that I mix up staff and stuff.
Amazing. Yeah.
But anyway, Dora, let's talk a little bit about Sudan and especially South Sudan. I wanted to tell you what is very interesting. My mom had a connection to Sudan. My mom, when in the 70s, when she became a famous movie actress, she got involved in a fund called The Hungry Child. And they were collecting money and food and medication for starving children in Africa. And my mom would donate. She was winning a lot of awards and she was donating, all the money she got through the awards, and she was collecting money. And then to make sure that the children that really needed this help got it, she would fly, with every shipment, she would fly to Sudan and make sure that the children received the help. So it's interesting. I grew up with these stories about Sudan and her trips to Sudan, and I'm excited that you and I met, and now I'm talking to you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Let's just start generally with Sudan. Sudan is a very big country. I'm reading it has 44 million people. It's in the northeast of Africa.
Yeah.
And then there is the story between Sudan and South Sudan, which separated itself in 2011. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, Sudan was one of the largest countries in Africa then, before we separated, but we have had conflicts over decades because, Sudan as a whole is a diverse country. We, as people, we are so diverse of different cultural, religious background. And mostly in the northern part of Sudan, it's predominantly, they consider themselves Arabs.
Yes, yeah, so they're Muslim.
In the northern part of Sudan, and Islam is the main religion.
Okay.
While in the southern part of Sudan, we see ourselves as predominantly of African origin, and the majority are Christians.
Okay.
And from the history of Sudan, we have been colonized by the English, and then there was a handover. There's this period of the Turco-Egyptian regime, and then the history goes back to those days where when the English left Sudan, they had the Egyptians and then the Turkish, and but people of South Sudan have always experienced oppression. The north, we never felt like we belonged there, So that's why there has always been these rebel groups, functions demanding for the separation of South Sudan. And it has taken so many years until 2011, when we finally, succeeded to divide the country. And that was such a great liberation for us. Yes. But unfortunately, we also have internal conflicts, that makes us so unstable. Though we are separated as a nation, but we still have our own internal conflicts. Now, as the youngest nation in Africa, we are about 11 million people, I think 12 million people. And we are a very diverse people as well. We are about 64 different ethnic groups or tribes. So that's very huge. But we are rich in culture and diversity, and we are a beautiful people, both hospitable. But of course, the war has left its scar on the people. The people are still living the traumas of the war. And also because of the war, that's why I'm here. We are so divided and separated in the families. I have a brother in the US, one in the UK. So as family, we are so much separated from each other. So, but things are, there are very many good things happening. And they think that we are now an independent state. We strive for the freedom, and now we are working to build it up. So there are lots of challenges, but with new nation, it takes time.
It does. Thank you, Dora. Let's talk about Mama Margaret. And as I just learned from you, because you told me Mama's name is Margaret, but she's also called Mama Edu, after your older brother. And we talked about this. It was interesting for me to learn that mamas get nicknamed or called after their firstborn child. Is it just the firstborn son, Dora, or firstborn child?
No, the daughter, it was even the firstborn child. Yeah.
And I laughed so much. Thankfully, I only have one, so they wouldn't have to argue about why am I called Mama Kai. But I decided from now on, I'll go as Mama Kai. I just love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Will you tell me about your mama, Margaret, or Mama Edu?
Yeah. Mama Edu, Margaret KG, that's the name, and we call her Yumes. Yumes means like mama, so we usually call her Yumes at home. She was a wonderful woman. May her soul rest in peace. She passed on in 2019. She was the firstborn also in her family, a family of, I think there were 8 or 9. And she also gave birth to 8 children, amazingly. I am the 7th of her 8 children. And she actually started having children quite early, I think about 18 years or 20. Her firstborn, she got married at 18, I think. She gave birth to her firstborn when she was 20. And she's a social worker. She did social work after But both her and my dad, because of the war in South Sudan, they had to flee from Juba in South Sudan to Uganda, walking on foot.
How far is that? How long does it take walking to Uganda?
It takes days.
Oh,
It takes days. Yeah. And she was the stories that I hear about their journey to Uganda. It's like she, and luckily my dad was there, so she had her first two children, and so they had to carry them in turns, and imagine all the journey. But they settled in Uganda for some time, and then they moved to Tanzania, where my mom studied social work, and they lived there for some time. So they have been refugees as themselves, for many years in Uganda and in Tanzania, and juggling being parents and giving birth to all the children. I think even my sister, the fifth child, was born in Tanzania. So they had all the children there before they moved back to Sudan. But in all that, moving away from home and the struggles of being a refugee in a country that's not your own, and trying to get jobs, trying to study at the same time.
So she worked while she had so many children. She worked as a social worker.
No, not there. She studied as a social worker.
Oh, she studied. Okay.
Studied social work there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But they had to do. My dad was telling me they had to work like houseboys, to be able to earn money for the family. And their resilience, through this time also, like being a refugee myself in Norway, looking at their story of working and how they managed to do it, looking at the opportunities that I have here, it gives me so much courage that, when they were able to make it, then I'll be able to make it too. But she was also, she studied in a missionary school, a strict regime in the school, of course. So she is such a structured woman, very neat, in everything, her things are neat and clean. She loves to have it clean around. And she's this type of person. Whenever things are not in order, she would not like it. So growing up, we all at home we knew what we had to do when we woke up in the morning before leaving to school. Everyone had a duty, a chore to do. And she made sure you do it well before leaving home. And it taught us being responsible, taking care of what you have. Though, of course, we were age, in the family, but we were not only the children living at home. We had our cousins living with us, And my dad as well had another wife. That's another interesting story.
Your dad had another wife?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's also called Margaret.
Oh, wow. But do you come from a Christian family?
I do.
But so did he have to divorce your mom?
No, he didn't. No. Polygamy is allowed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It is a common culture. It's a common practice. So, and when growing up, I knew my other mom, Margaret, So they were living, both of them, in the same house. I didn't see them quarreling. They respected each other. They might have had their own fights, but we never saw that.
Never saw that. And did the other Margaret have as many children? There must have been many children in the house.
No, had one girl, but she passed on. I think she was 2 years older than me, but she passed on. So I never met her. But she stayed until she passed on, after my dad. And she considered us as her own children. And at the age of 6 years, I remember my dad was working in Kenya, Nairobi, the Sudanese embassy there. So I and my other brother, 2 years older than me, we lived with my brother. And I remembered her at the age of 6 as my mom, because that's when I spent the time most with her, But my mom, Margaret, Mama Edu, the one that gave birth to me, is the one that I took most of today. So she is this woman who, she took care, she was like, though there were 2 wives, but everyone knew her as she in a way was the head of the home, the head of the house, and she delegated all the house chores, delegated things that done. And at the same time, she made sure that everyone had it well at home. And also in the community, she was looked up to. People sought her advice on things. I remember even people would come, with their children. She wasn't a doctor, but she administered also some injections, in a while. She learned how to do it because her dad was a nurse. So it helped her in a way to be able to meet the needs of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm looking at how she kind of lived her life, by being so present in our lives and at the same time offering herself for others,
Mm-hmm. Dora, you sent me some beautiful, beautiful lessons from Mama Edu. Do you you already spoke about resilience. That was your lesson number 1. Do you want to tell me about the other lessons?
Yeah. Also, she was grounded and she lived her values, not like loudly, but you could see in her presence how she carried herself. And one thing she has taught me, it's like that being a woman is a blessing, and that I'm able to do what I set my heart on. Because she came also from my family. She was the eldest in her family, and her dad had many boys, but her dad also believed in educating girls, and she and her sister, that had been a minister, a governor, knew the importance of lifting up other women. And from the way I saw her, she showed me the way she carried herself, that being a woman is a blessing, and that I'm able to do whatever I put my heart in. And she taught me also the importance of being my unique self, that I should never compare myself to any other person. I remember while studying in Khartoum, in Sudan, as a student, life can be tough. You need money, and sometimes they have to send money from South Sudan to me, and not often that they maybe had the money to send. And she wrote letters, and she had this beautiful handwriting, and because she wrote in English, because, and she would tell me, of the importance of, she understand that sometimes I might want things, I might want to buy maybe clothes that, some of my friends have and all this, but what she's sending me is little, but it should be used for the important things. And I should be my unique self. I should never compare myself to others that have maybe more than I do. And that carried me through, my life student there, and even as the grown-up woman I am today, by being my unique self, And the other lesson she also has taught me is integrity, that in her consistent way and uncompromising, adherence to her strong moral and ethical principles, and values that she lived on by example. She didn't like, as a young girl, I didn't have words for them, I didn't knew what they were, but I could just see it from the way she carried herself and did her things and what she meant for others as well.
Dora, I have a little trouble hearing you. Can we try unplugging the headset and seeing how it goes?
Yeah, no, I was saying she was strict with us, and that also helped us to be kind of organized and do things the way she wanted us to do it. Because like now, as a grown up, I see the importance of all the things she has taught us. And I remember when, when she has been out and coming home, right from the gate, she would start saying, "Oh, Dora, what is this? Why is this thing here? I told you to do it before, And now I also kind of do some of these things. Like when I get in and I see the shoes, my children just, show them here, and then the school bags. And I'm like, sometimes even before saying hello. So...
you recognize your mama in you.
Exactly, I do. So I'm like, okay.
But Dora, don't you have to be strict if you have 8 children and work to survive?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there's a choice. Everything has to be under control and running smoothly.
Yeah, definitely. And she succeeded in that. Absolutely.
Yes.
She did.
Yeah. Yeah. Your sound is so much better now. Now I feel bad that I didn't ask you earlier to change the earphones. I hope it's going to be okay. But let's talk about, I'm curious if there was something important she was not able to teach you, or something that you had to learn yourself.
Yeah. I think in the context I grew up in, and given the conditions there and then, she taught me everything I needed to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now, if she was in this context that I'm parenting in now, I would have loved her to tell me, to talk to me about, like now I have, my daughter is 17, and it's this age where you really need to converse about some topics, for example, like sexuality, these are taboo topics that my mom had never talked to me about. If she was here and parenting me, I would love her to have such a conversation with me, because it's so important.
It's so
but
important.
But then there, it's like, So I wouldn't, I can't think of anything that I lacked there and then. So I think she tried her best in the context that I was living in, and she was raising me in. Yeah.
Do you teach your daughter about sexuality and about her body?
We talk, we have conversations about it. I think it's really good. And I like this openness about talking to them, because I feel there's so much information out there. The children are now in the technology, that we have today. There's access to so much information, and wrong information as well.
Yes.
So I believe, as a parent, I would rather talk to them and also talk about the information that they get out there, and then say, that's not right. And if I'm not open about it, then they will not even come to me in case they need my help and my advice. So it's so important for me to be open about it.
It's so important. In my 70 interviews that I've done until now with women literally from all over the world, that comes back most of the times as something that women wish their mothers taught them, is that it's sexuality and their bodies. And it obviously is extremely important to women. As one of the guests said, so I wouldn't have to do trial and error. You don't want to do trial and error with your own body and your own health. It's important. Wow, Dora, this was very, very interesting. I feel bad about the sound, but I hope it's going to be okay and the listeners will be able to hear you. If not, we'll have to record another interview.
No worries. So you just check it if you feel like it's not good, so we can do it again. I think it's nice just talking to you about it. So
yes,
absolutely.
I'm enjoying this a lot. Let me just recap quickly the lessons that you shared from Mama Edu. So we had resilience and her ability to withstand adversity. She told you to be unique and to never compare yourself to anybody. And that being a woman is a blessing. Then she taught you about integrity. I love this, and how she had her uncompromising values, and that she lived by example, that she lived her values, and you could really see them and learn them through the way she lived. Did I forget anything?
No, you captured it so well. Thank you.
Dora, thank you again for being my guest.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. And just listening to all the great interviews you've had with these women. So be blessed and continue the great job.
Thank you, Dora. If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyoumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Tajder, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.